James Eugene Jim Carrey's life reads like a movie about a boy who refuses to surrender to hardship, using comedy as both shield and sword until it carries him from a working-class Canadian childhood to global icon status as one of the most distinctive comic actors of his generation. What makes his journey compelling is not only the string of hit films, but the way he continually transforms himself, from rubber-faced impressionist to serious dramatic actor, from Hollywood star to introspective artist and writer.
I am your beloved Count Olaf.
Born on January 17, 1962, in Newmarket, Ontario, Canada, Jim Carrey grew up in and around Toronto in a family that knew both love and financial instability. His mother, Kathleen, was a homemaker of Irish and Scottish descent, and his father, Percy, was a saxophonist and accountant from a French-Canadian family whose original surname was Kerr. Carrey was the youngest of 4 children, John, Patricia, Rita, and Jim, and from early on he stood out for his restless energy and desire to make people laugh. At 8, he began practicing in front of a mirror, stretching his face into impossible shapes and teaching himself an arsenal of impressions, ranging from cartoon characters to classic Hollywood stars. The discovery that he could transform his own features at will became the seed of a lifelong relationship with physical comedy. Carrey's childhood, however, was far from glamorous. His father's jobs were unstable, and by Jim's early teens the family's finances had deteriorated badly. They spent part of this period living in a Volkswagen van, and, for months, Jim and his brother stayed in a tent at Charles Daly Park on the shore of Lake Ontario, while the family tried to get back on its feet. When Percy eventually found work in the accounting department of a tire factory in Scarborough, the family was allowed to live in a house across the street. But the arrangement came with a cost. Jim and his brother John were expected to work evening and night shifts as janitors and security guards. They attended school by day and then cleaned toilets and swept floors through the night, an exhausting routine that pushed Jim to the edge of burnout. On his 16th birthday, overwhelmed and convinced that his future lay elsewhere, he dropped out of high school to help support his family and pursue comedy full-time. Even in those difficult years, Carrey held onto a sense of possibility. At 10, brimming with confidence, he wrote to the producers of The Carol Burnett Show to declare that he was already a master impressionist and should be considered for the show, and he treasured the form letter reply he received. A devoted fan of British troupe Monty Python, he absorbed their surreal style and later recalled the impact of a sketch in which a man literally laughs himself to death, an absurd performance he recognized as eerily similar to his own extreme comedic instincts. Those influences gave him permission to be big, strange, and fearless, even when the rest of his life felt small and precarious. By his mid-teens, Carrey was ready to test himself on stage. At 15, with his father's encouragement and help shaping a nightclub routine, he made his stand-up debut at the newly opened Yuck Yucks Comedy Club in Toronto. Wearing a polyester leisure suit chosen by his mother, because that's how the stars dressed on the Dean Martin Celebrity Roast, he launched into a series of precise celebrity impersonations. The set bombed. His clean, conventional impressions clashed with the raunchy, hard-edged tone of the club, and the teenage comic left the stage humiliated and full of doubt about whether he had any future in show business. Yet the failure, instead of ending his ambitions, became fuel. He would go back, and he would get better. As the family's financial situation slowly stabilized and they moved to a more secure home in Jackson's Point, Carrey returned to the stage with new determination. By 1979, he had developed a sharper, more confident act and landed his first paid gig, a 20-minute spot for $20 in a Scarborough club, the first tangible proof that someone would pay him for being funny. He reconquered Yuck Yucks, this time in its newer Yorkville location, evolving from open mic hopeful to regular paid performer. The big turning point came when a glowing profile with a large photo of his contorted face, caught mid-impression of Sammy Davis Jr., appeared on the front page of the entertainment section of the Toronto Star, calling him a genuine star coming to life. The article gave him national visibility and turned his once embarrassing act into a sought-after attraction across Canada. On the road, Carrey opened for established comedians like Buddy Hackett and Rodney Dangerfield, who saw enough promise to invite him along on tour. At the same time, he chased bigger opportunities, auditioning for American television and variety shows. In the early 1980s, he repeatedly tried to join Saturday Night Live, only to be rejected each time, even when he finally auditioned directly for producer Lorne Michaels. Those setbacks stung, because SNL seemed like a natural home for his wild, character-driven style. But they also nudged him away from being just a mimic and towards the broader, more original comedic persona that would make him world famous. In 1983, Carrey took a leap and moved to Hollywood, determined to succeed where so many hopefuls had failed. He performed at the Comedy Store and other clubs, aiming at a coveted spot on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. After an initial booking was rescinded over a lukewarm showcase set, he eventually made his debut on the show, ripping through a rapid-fire series of impressions, from Elvis Presley to Clint Eastwood to Kermit the Frog, that showcased his control over his voice and body. Though Carson gave him the approving signal at the end of the performance, he didn't invite Carrey over to the couch, a small but telling sign that the young comic still had some distance to travel before true mainstream acceptance. Between club dates, Carrey landed acting roles, including the lead in the Canadian TV movie Introducing Janet, later retitled Rubber Face, to capitalize on his growing fame, which gave audiences their first glimpse of him as a narrative actor rather than a stand-up novelty. The mid-1980s and late 1980s brought a steady trickle of film and television work. Carrey starred in the horror comedy Once Bitten, played a supporting role in Francis Ford Coppola's Peggy Sue Got Married, and appeared as a blue-skinned alien in the offbeat musical comedy Earth Girls Are Easy. None of these roles turned him into a household name, but they kept him in front of cameras, sharpening his instincts and proving that his oversized persona could be shaped to fit scripted characters. In 1984, he briefly headlined the NBC sitcom The Duck Factory, playing a naive animator at a low-budget cartoon studio, a short-lived but significant step toward becoming a regular television presence. He also taped his own stand-up specials, where audiences could see the full range of his physical inventiveness, collapsing bodies, rubber limbs, and faces that seemed to dissolve and reassemble before their eyes. The breakthrough finally came at the start of the 1990s when Carrey joined the cast of In Living Color, a bold, edgy sketch comedy series on the Fox network created by Keenen Ivory Wayans. Surrounded by a largely black ensemble, Carrey emerged as the standout white comic in the group, throwing himself into characters like the grotesquely injured superhero Fire Marshal Bill and other outrageous caricatures. Free from network expectations that demanded subtlety, he pushed his physicality and absurdity to new extremes, creating a kind of live-action cartoon energy that viewers had never seen before on primetime television. The show ran from 1990 to 1994, and while it launched or boosted the careers of numerous performers, it was Carrey who seemed most primed for big-screen stardom by the end of its run. In 1994, everything changed. Within a single year, Carrey starred in 3 films: Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber, that turned him into a global phenomenon. Ace Ventura introduced audiences to a lunatic animal detective with a gravity-defying hairstyle, talking out of the side of his mouth and bending his body into impossible shapes. The movie became a sleeper hit and a generational touchstone. The Mask, released the same year, allowed him to literally embody a living cartoon. A shy bank clerk transformed into a green-faced, wisecracking whirlwind whenever he donned a magical mask, a performance that earned him his first Golden Globe nomination. Dumb and Dumber, in which he played the hilariously dim Lloyd Christmas opposite Jeff Daniels, cemented his status as a comedic force, scoring huge box office returns and seeping into pop culture through endlessly quoted lines and scenes. That trio of hits made Carrey one of Hollywood's most bankable stars and led studios to pay him unprecedented salaries for a comic actor. The mid-1990s turned into a parade of high-profile projects. Carrey took on the role of the Riddler in Joel Schumacher's superhero blockbuster Batman Forever, delivering a manic, neon-bright villain that matched the film's gaudy tone. He reprised his breakout role in Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls, a broader, bigger sequel that audiences flocked to even as critics remained divided. With The Cable Guy in 1996, Carrey accepted a then-record $20 million upfront fee to play a darker character, a lonely, socially warped cable installer who becomes dangerously obsessed with a new friend. The film's offbeat, unsettling tone left some audiences uncertain, but it marked an early attempt to stretch beyond the lovable goofball persona and hinted at the more complex roles he would later embrace. He bounced back with Liar Liar in 1997, playing a slick lawyer magically forced to tell the truth for 24 hours, a concept that perfectly showcased his ability to twist his face and body into hilarious contortions while balancing genuine emotion. The late 1990s revealed another surprising dimension of Carrey's talent: his capacity for nuanced, dramatic acting. In 1998, he took a pay cut to star in The Truman Show, a satirical drama about a man who slowly discovers that his entire life has been broadcast to the world as a reality television show. The film, directed by Peter Weir, required Carrey to dial down his usual excess and play a fundamentally ordinary man whose dawning awareness leads to quiet courage instead of slapstick chaos. Critics praised the performance, and he won a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Motion Picture Drama, prompting many to argue that he deserved an Academy Award nomination as well. The following year, he embodied the enigmatic comedian Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon, disappearing so completely into the role that much of the shoot blurred the line between acting and possession. Again, he won a Golden Globe, but saw Oscar recognition elude him. These films established him as more than a comic novelty. They proved he could carry complex, emotionally textured stories. Carrey continued to balance commercial comedies with more ambitious projects in the 2000s. In Me, Myself, and Irene, he played a Rhode Island state trooper with dissociative identities, colliding broad farce with hints of psychological darkness. That same year, he transformed into the title character in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, a live-action interpretation of the Dr. Seuss classic that buried him under prosthetics, yet still relied heavily on his expressive eyes and movement to bring the Grinch to life. In 2003, he headlined Bruce Almighty, playing a frustrated TV reporter granted godlike powers for a time, a concept that allowed him to riff on human ego, faith, and responsibility while delivering crowd-pleasing spectacle. Then, in 2004, he took another leap with Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, a melancholic science fiction romance about a man who chooses to erase the memories of a painful relationship. Stripped of his usual mugging, Carrey's performance as Joel Barish was introspective, wounded, and quietly yearning, earning him some of the best reviews of his career and a BAFTA nomination. In the same year, Carrey reminded audiences of his comedic versatility by starring in the film adaptation of Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, playing the villainous Count Olaf in a string of elaborate disguises. Over the next several years, he tried on different genres: the remake, Fun with Dick and Jane, the numerology-infused thriller, The Number 23, and the upbeat comedy Yes Man, about a man who vows to say yes to every opportunity. He also ventured into voice acting, notably as Horton the Elephant in the animated adaptation of Dr. Seuss's Horton Hears a Who, and as multiple characters, including Ebenezer Scrooge and several ghosts, in the motion capture animated film A Christmas Carol. These projects demonstrated that his chameleonic physical presence could translate even when his actual face was off-screen or digitally altered. Behind the scenes, Carrey's inner life was more fragile than his exuberant performances suggested. He has spoken openly about suffering from depression and for years relied on medication to manage it, though he later chose to stop taking pharmaceuticals and abstain from alcohol and drugs altogether. His personal relationships were often in the public eye. Early high-profile romances included singer Linda Ronstadt, and he married twice, first to Melissa Womer, with whom he had a daughter, Jane, and later to his Dumb and Dumber co-star Lauren Holly. Both marriages ended in divorce, and subsequent long-term relationships, including one with actress and TV personality Jenny McCarthy, were followed closely by the media. The most tragic chapter came with his relationship with Irish makeup artist Catriona White, who died by suicide in 2015 after struggling with personal and health issues. Carrey served as a pallbearer at her funeral in Ireland and later fought wrongful death lawsuits filed by her estranged husband and mother, which were dismissed in 2018. These experiences deepened the sense of vulnerability that sometimes surfaced in his interviews and later work. Carrey also became a polarizing public figure for his views on vaccines and politics. In 2009, alongside Jenny McCarthy, he spoke out about vaccine safety, participated in rallies, and wrote articles questioning aspects of vaccination policy, drawing sharp criticism from medical experts and science advocates who accused him of spreading misinformation. Politically, he leaned outspokenly progressive, advocating for more robust social policies and, in his words, urging Americans not to be afraid of the word socialism. Beginning in 2017, he started posting vivid political cartoons online, skewering figures like President Donald Trump and members of his administration. The cartoons accumulated enough attention to be exhibited in a gallery show titled Indignation in Los Angeles. Eventually, in 2021, he announced that he would stop creating political art, suggesting that the project had run its course. At the same time, Carrey cultivated a rich spiritual and artistic life. He has spoken about his belief in the law of attraction and famously revealed that, as a struggling actor, he wrote himself a post-dated check for $10 million for acting services rendered, kept it in his wallet, and, years later, received a real check for that amount as his film career exploded. He practices transcendental meditation and has described profound moments of feeling connected to something larger than himself, including a transformative experience influenced by spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle. Around 2011, he turned seriously to painting and sculpture, eventually revealing his studio in the short documentary, I Needed Color, which shows large, colorful canvases filled with faces and emotions that seem to echo the extremes he once expressed through comedy. In 2020, he added novelist to his list of roles by publishing Memoirs and Misinformation, a surreal, semi-autobiographical book that blurred the line between his public persona and a fictional version of himself. In the 2010s, Carrey's screen output slowed but became more eclectic. He starred in I Love You, Philip Morris, playing a charismatic con artist whose love for another inmate drives a series of audacious schemes, a performance that critics praised for its blend of charm and vulnerability. Later came appearances in Kick-Ass 2 and the incredible Burt Wonderstone, along with the long-awaited sequel Dumb and Dumber 2, which reunited him with Jeff Daniels as older, only slightly wiser versions of their dim-witted characters. He served as an executive producer on the Showtime series I'm Dying Up Here, loosely inspired by the 1970s Los Angeles stand-up scene that had shaped his own early years. Perhaps most revealing was his return to television as the star of Kidding, a darkly poetic series about a beloved children's show host struggling to process grief while his gentle TV persona clashes with his collapsing personal life. The role allowed Carrey to explore the tension between public warmth and private pain with unusual depth. A new generation of fans discovered Carrey when he joined the Sonic the Hedgehog film franchise as Dr. Evo Eggman Robotnik, the cartoonish villain of the video game series. The 2020 film, released after a major redesign of its titular character, became a box office success, and Carrey's performance was widely praised as a joyful return to the anarchic, high-energy style that had made him famous, now infused with decades of experience. He reprised the role in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which delivered the biggest domestic opening weekend of his career, proving that his appeal remained strong across generations. Even as he voiced the omniscient narrator on The Weeknd's album Dawn FM, he hinted at a fascination with mortality, memory, and the passage of time, a recurring undercurrent in his later work. In interviews around 2022, Carrey mused that he might retire from acting, saying he felt he had done enough and would only return for a project that felt truly special. Yet he remained open to possibilities, and by 2024 he had agreed to reprise Robotnik in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, even joking that he took the role because he needed the money, before clarifying that he was more interested in power rest than in a definitive retirement. The studio, in a playful nod to his earlier comments, reportedly sent him a copy of the script written in 24-karat ink, as if to embody the golden script he once said would lure him back. Beyond Sonic, he continued to develop projects as a producer and artist, suggesting that his creative energy would find outlets even if he stepped away from constant on-camera work. Through all of this, Carrey's relationship with fame and identity has remained complex. He holds dual Canadian and American citizenship and has long split his life between the quiet comforts of his Brentwood home and the noisy demands of Hollywood. In a 2004 interview, he half-jokingly described himself as a Buddhist, a Muslim, and a Christian, hinting at a spiritual search that refuses neat labels. He has said that he sometimes feels like a witness to the character of Jim Carrey rather than the character himself, a perspective shaped, perhaps, by decades of performing versions of himself for public consumption. This distance can make him seem enigmatic or even eccentric, but it also helps explain why he can step in and out of roles with such total commitment. Jim Carrey's legacy is woven from many strands. He is the elastic-faced comic who turned physical exaggeration into an art form, inspiring countless impressionists and comedians who grew up copying his scenes from VHS tapes. He is the actor who surprised skeptics with layered, vulnerable performances in films like The Truman Show and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, expanding ideas about what a comedian could do on screen. He is also the artist and author who, after decades in the brightest spotlight, chose to step back and explore different ways of making meaning, whether through paint on a canvas or words on a page. For audiences, his story offers a reminder that the person who makes us laugh the hardest may also be grappling with some of the heaviest questions about purpose, identity, and what it means to be enough. When we trace his journey from a teenager cleaning factory floors and sleeping in a van to a performer who commands stages, screens, and galleries around the world, the through line is an almost stubborn belief in the power of imagination. Jim Carrey took the faces he once pulled in the mirror and used them to reshape his destiny, proving that a life defined by hardship can be rewritten, frame by frame, joke by joke, performance by performance, into something extraordinary.